This video isn't for kids, and I'm also going to be using a lot of big words because that's just how I write, and I only say both of these things out loud and up front because I know that Undertale fans can't read.
Turn the TV off, 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 turn the TV off.
Hi, I'm V. I don't do YouTube. I just need to make this video as a 16th century teen might proclaim the word of God spoken to them in a vision that later turns out to be convulsive ergotism, because I need to impart the knowledge that plagues my mind, and hopefully some of you might listen. Toby Fox, much like a 16th century teen with convulsive ergotism might, once got sick so bad that he hallucinated a masterpiece of ludonarrative and decided, like a millennial, to make an indie video game about it, but only after making the crowdfunded proof of concept that came to be a cross-generational touchstone for the terminally online but generally harmless. Deltarune's got themes. I'm not here to walk you step by step through the plot of Deltarune thus far, because that's not what plagues my mind. What is knowing that Toby Fox got my ass so good in Chapter 3 of Deltarune that I can't stop thinking about it. I'm frankly a little bit upset, and like a cursed, fucked up VHS, I feel the need to spread this to as many other people as possible, lest it overtake my mind completely. All this even though I don't have a YouTube channel to speak of, and I'm not really on social media anymore, not in any capacity that matters, because I no longer fuck with platforms that matter to advertisers and or the state. If you like this video, I guess enjoy my K-pop concert videos that each have like 30 views, and the 2 Hannibal edits that I made in 2020, which together comprise the only 2 things I've ever used my external Mac-compatible DVD drive for. So, a little preamble about me. I promise we're getting to the good shit, but I feel like I do need to lead with this, and that is that I've been around in fandom. Like, I'm old, first of all. I need to say that right now. I'm old. I've done this. I'm old. I've done this. I used to take fandom a lot more seriously, and if you knew me back then, I'm sorry, but nowadays I just lurk in the only platforms that are left online to lurk in fandom, and occasionally I'll scuttle out from beneath my rock to say things like, yes, I agree, those 2 polar explorers, as portrayed in The Terror 2018 AMC, do need to make out, and then I'll just scuttle back under my rock and be happy. I'm over it, not really, I'm not over fandom, like I really enjoy it still a lot, but it takes a lot for a ship to move me on the merits of the ship alone, you know. I still love thematically resonant romance arcs with really good character development, like Severance. It's like, chef's kiss, give me more of that. But even then, I'm not shipping the characters, you know what I mean? There are levels to this, not unlike Dante's Inferno, and I believe that the most milquetoast amateur hour shit is just saying things like, I think those 2 should make out, or even, if these 2 aren't together in the next season, I'm gonna commit arson. That, to me, is just being engaged with the text. Shipping is, and I say this as someone who had a live journal since 2001, back when you needed an invite code to get one, shipping is something that, not by definition, perhaps, but definitely in practice, takes a certain level of being unhinged and investigative to hit right. Now, unhinged is a nonsense contextual qualifier that comes down to I know it when I see it, so that's neither here nor there really, but when I say investigative, I mean it, and I want you to hold on to that for me because I'm going to be coming back for it after I introduce you to these fucking creatures. That's the metaphysical embodiment of a spam email, and he might be a puppet. That's a television set. They're divorced. I've also never gotten closure on a relationship that, through more textual evidence than you probably think, meant so much to them that it rewired their respective senses of self and purpose as monumentally significant relationships do. Now, there were outside forces at play, that's how life goes, but what is life to Darkners anyway? What is self and purpose, and how does it intersect with love? I sure as hell don't know, but it's probably not like you and I know it. And anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm not really going to be going into it that much. I'm going to go into it a little bit. Now, for my personal money, this is the most compelling ship that I've encountered in any media in about a decade. This is a ship that was specially grown in a lab to appeal to the capital S shippers. And what I want to impress upon you with this, yes, you, the one who actually played Deltarune and is already tangentially aware of this ship at the very least, is that since this ship was birthed in Chapter 3 of Deltarune, the industrious amongst the unhinged have been pulling up to the library and doing the work. We've been rolling up our digital sleeves and poring over the microfiche, as it were, to connect more and more and more and weave this web that legitimizes and gives depth to this ship, discovering a breadcrumb trail that Toby Fox left knowing we'd find it because this man knows how fandoms work. He loves Homestuck, for fuck's sake. This ship is not fan service, it's an artisanal, sophisticated gift. Now, a heavy-hanging theme of Deltarune Chapter 3 is divorce and the effects of divorce, not just to the people who are going through the divorce, but the people who are subject to the effects of that peripherally. I find that a great theme, but another theme that I find very intriguing, which I don't see anybody else talking about, but I excuse that completely because I believe we're still in that superficial theory crafting afterglow stage since the games just came out, and that's artifice. Some do also say nostalgia is a big theme, and I agree, but I think that nostalgia is a bigger theme of the overarching narrative of Deltarune as a work in progress, and that it is more applicable as a theme to Chris themselves. Personally, my reading of Deltarune is that each chapter explores a theme pertaining to the creation of the Dark World, but also in relation to character arcs of one or two characters that we meet throughout the journey. A boss, a secret boss, a party member. Chapter 1, we had Lancer and Susie. They both had some growth to them. Arguably Jevil, but it's Chapter 1, it's an hors d'oeuvre, like we didn't go too far in Chapter 1. Chapter 2, we definitely had Noelle and Spamtenna on their respective arcs. Chapter 3, Tenna and Chris. Chapter 4, Susie and Gerson. There's kind of a theme of people having a counterpart in a Dark World. It's weird. Ralsei also in Chapter 4, but I've not really gotten my teeth into Chapter 4 as far as theory crafting and interpretation goes yet. I am still letting that chapter wash over me. There was so much there. But in Chapter 3, Tenna, who's our television Tumblr sexy man, thrives on artifice. He is an egoistic people pleaser by his very nature. Like, he himself is a black mirror who mirrors the emotions and the needs of the Lighteners who rely on him. The Lighteners that he exists to distract and entertain, but only when they summon him, only when he is turned on and invited to do so. To even fulfill his purpose, he must be summoned. He must be given the authority to do that. And that inherently gives him a more servile and artificial persona. The TV Dark World is layers of artifice. It's a set. It's populated by people who are creating this simulacrum of a Dark World adventure for Chris and Ralsei and Susie. The S-rank luxury dressing room is a dump, which is also thematically significant. I'll get to it. Hold on to that for me as well, thank you. The game boards are toothless. They're not a real challenge, and even those game boards are only a reskin of an existing 8-bit video game that has more mature and dark themes with an uglier side to it. I'm not even going to go into wondering how Tenna got a hold of this game and just sat there banging out a ROM hack or a shareware mod for it, like indie dev king, honestly. But the entire pretense for the TV Dark World is one of artifice. Fill this void, make this thing, fill it with style, if not substance, and maybe you'll get what you want. Suppress your own needs, deny your own boundaries, push everyone else away, and maybe then you'll get that one thing that you want. All you'll need to do is maintain artifice forever. Easy. Now contrast this with Chapter 2 and its themes of agency and of chasing self-actualization. There's so much going on in Chapter 2 psychologically that I'm not going to waste too much time going into it. I'm going to waste a little bit of time going into it. That's never stopped me before, by the way. Queen in this chapter does not have her own arc so much as she serves as a scaffold for Noelle's arc of finding her own path and exercising her own agency. See, the entire concept of self-actualization in pop psychology is based on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which posits that there are load-bearing layers that form an order of other needs, which need to be achieved before one can hope to even attempt to gain self-actualization. Physiological needs, safety needs, love and belonging, and then esteem. And then on top of that, self-actualization. Noelle, true gamer girl that she is, SGDQs that shit in Chapter 2 with the help of the Fun Gang and Birdly, and to a certain extent Queen, and by the end she has this lovely moment of standing up for herself and exercising her own agency, getting that much closer to self-actualization, and thus a road is laid for her future character arc. And then in the weird route, we just fucking dog walk and pervert all of that. We just fulfill those base foundational needs for Noelle, and we manipulate her, removing her agency and pointing her directly at self-actualization via utility of power, which we as the player know that she has, but which she must awaken on her own terms in order to really become a self. That's where Spamtenna comes in. Fucking raggedy-ass, rejected Poppy Playtime creepypasta type beat that he is, and he mops the floor with the implications of his storyline. Yes, I do believe there is a thus far to tack onto the end there, because I sincerely believe that we have not seen the last of Spamtenna in a narratively significant context, possibly in perpetual retrospective sense, but admit there are few characters in Deltarune that have as many loose threads that need to be tied up. Not to mention this clearance bin chew toy of a fucker has been omnipresent in the greater metatextual Deltarune ecosystem from his introduction and right up to now. Like, he will not die. And not just in a fan service way. There are threads here, buddy. Like, there's so much to Spamtenna that goes beyond the funny meme character level, and it was chapters 3 and 4 which finally convinced me that he's being pushed as more than just a haha funny homestuck typing quirk looking ass. I do subscribe very, very deeply to device theory, by the way. I'll just get that out of the way here now as like a required reading for this video. If you're watching a video like this, there's good odds you probably have already seen device theory, but if not, please take 10 hours out of your life and go watch it. I say 10 hours because I'm throwing in a couple hours there for just processing and recovering from device theory. But if you haven't experienced yet, please go watch device theory. Don't go fucking watch it on 1.5x speed either, by the way. Like, Molly's delivery is a fundamental aspect of why device theory rips so severely. I'm getting to the part where the email definitely fucked the television, by the way. I'm just laying a foundation here that's hopefully more substantive than Deltarune is a 2018 RPG, in which, in the next part, I'm going to be using the term God as a placeholder, and I beg of you to all be cool and mature and media literate about that, because while I do subscribe to device theory, and I do believe that Gaster is God in so many ways when it comes to the game, I also feel that it's more empathetic in media analysis to strip the dramatic irony from the situation and talk about things occurring as they might seem to the characters. So for all intents and purposes, I do think God is an applicable placeholder here, even though I don't mean like the Christian God, you know? You'll see what I mean. Spamtenna, and this is purely interpretation of themes, mind you, Spamtenna has had self-actualization given to him. It's thrust upon him almost, and then it's taken away. This paints to me the most compelling character portrait and psychological question in all of Deltarune. What happens when you're literally God's specialist boy and you have everything that you want, but all of that is contingent upon you never stopping, looking around and maybe going, I should really get down on some of these other psychological needs maybe and get some love and belonging or maybe some self-esteem. No. Extremely loud incorrect buzzer. God has forsaken you. happened to my good friend Spamten G. Spamten. So then, and this is a myth that's told in the margins of the actual story, Spamten cannot conceive of building his way back to that. Not only because it seems impossible, having tasted ambrosia to then thrive on crumbs, but having felt the capricious rejection of God, toiling in God's service is no longer a palatable existence to him. You gotta fight. Spamten wants to kill God. Spamten tries to fight his way to God by acquiring a soul care of you, the player, and using it via the Neo body to see beyond the dark and get to heaven, only to later find out that that was all an illusion and he is still a puppet. You can't just skip through all of that foundational building of a self. You can't master key plus seal skip glitch your way past those foundational needs. You need to humble yourself. Not for God, because fuck God, and it's okay to say fuck God when you're standing on a strong foundational basis of physiological needs, love and belonging, and esteem. You need to accept selfhood and put in the work. As an aside, because I just really feel like this is funny, I love that one of the few pre-divine intervention facts that we know about Spamten is that he was on that Sigma grind set 24/7. Like, dude put in the work. But I find it endearing a little bit that his flaw seemed to be that he could not accept that being mid was okay. Like, relatable. At the end of chapter 2, he does embrace this process of life and of self, which is followed precipitously by his fucking death. But not really, but maybe, yeah, I don't know. There's a whole lot to the nature of Darkners as selves. And all jokes aside, I love that about this game, that there's so much that's unanswered that might not ever be answered. Like, thank you, Toby Fox, for giving us a rich, textured universe without a rule book. I actually really love it. It makes theory crafting and writing fanfic, like, very fun, but also fucking intense at times. Anyway, there's themes. They're gonna tie into how Toby Fox made me so emotional about these two. By the way, the creatures, may I remind you, we're getting to it. We're getting to it now, actually. So here's the part of the video where I actually say the word Spamtenna out loud. Which, Jesus Christ, that sure is a thing to say out loud to other human beings, but it's important shorthand so that I can fill the script with my usual pretentious verbosity and not just say the relationship between Spamten and Tenna 1,000 times. I must acknowledge and praise upfront the early Rosetta Stone of Spamtenna, which is this video by Marsbots. Link in the description. It's not the only one out there, but it was the first one that I found when I was taken by the vapors of this ship, awake at 2 a.m., sitting there thinking, it can't just be me. It's all there. Like, it's real. There's more to this. Like, I watched Salty DK Dan's playthrough, blind playthrough of chapter 3 live because my ass is bad at video games, admittedly, and I love them, but I'm bad at them. So usually I prefer to unburden myself of the risk of spoilers by watching an epic gamer play a game first, and then experience it for myself, rather than do the alternative of spending 5 hours on release day trying to get S rank on board 2, go to bed, and then wake up to a million The Roaring Night spoilers on my feed. For me, that's what I do. Anyway, I'm goated at actually like 2 games exactly, /series. One is Katamari Damacy and the other is Animal Well. And the particular dexterity required for Katamari does not translate to other games whatsoever. And the supremacy in Animal Well is just jump good and be clever. So I watched that playthrough. Canon Tenna voice, by the way. Like, nobody else could ever. I laughed at the toxic yaoi jokes and I slept soundly, thinking, that Toby, he really loves a good wink and a nod, a good moment of fan service. But during my own playthrough, it just... you got me.
They got me, gal!
So I need to pause here and note that I've never been a Spamten guy. I think he's compelling, obviously, all that up there. He's the most interesting Darkner at this point, definitely. I even own his stupid talking plush, which, to be fair, I own a lot of plush, and I was bewitched and personally targeted by the original marketing campaign from Fangaber for that plush, so the first thing I did when I got him in the mail, by the way, was indeed to throw him at full force against a wall, and it is very cathartic. But he's not my Blorbo. Now, the definition of blorbo is nebulous, but I believe that it is a very important part of fandom taxonomy. Blorbos are not just compelling characters within the text that you interact with, they are characters that compel you personally. Everyone has their own Rubicon to cross when it comes to determining whether a character has crossed that line to become a blorbo or not. For me, it's usually wanting to cosplay that character. So to date, from Deltarune, I've cosplayed Noelle Holiday. And at the time of writing, I'm currently about 60% through my Tenna cosplay. Yeah, it's not finished yet, but I'm proud of this jacket. This is at this point 90% caulk and gesso. Caulk with an L, by the way. I'm gonna be Tenna. Guys, he's so fucking gender. He's so fucking neurodivergent and gender.
I'd let him kill me.
But with Spamten, it's more like, hey, my guy, you're other people's blorbo, but not mine, and that's great, that's cool, you do you. So I was not predisposed to shipping him with Tenna. I've not shipped anything in Undertale Deltarune, to be honest. Again, loving a ship is not the same as shipping it. I've accepted the text, I've enjoyed it. I've made it a medium-sized part of my personality, and I moved on. I put most of my fandom energy into appreciating theorycraft and analyzing the text. By the way, Suzel, real but cruisy endgame, fight me. So that my prevailing feeling after playing through Deltarune Chapter 3 and watching at least 4 other blind playthroughs was, I'm not insane? Spamtenna had the juice. I'm gonna be doing this in levels. What I want to do is give you first a normal, bare bones, on rails, I just want to get from point A to point B, and I don't have an encyclopedic memory of Undertale Deltarune lore, dialogue, or music choices. I want to do that playthrough of Chapter 3 for you, go over it, and see what it nets you in terms of Spamtenna awareness. This is the level at which I assume most Deltarune players know about this ship. I'm just going to call it the normal route, or the those are Spamten references route. As another tiny little preamble here, a common funny haha gag about shippers, especially queer shippers for some reason, is some variant on the observation that we really love it when two characters stand next to each other in a scene and then don't interact for the rest of the text. That's very funny because that is very true. But here's the thing.
I know writers who use subtext and they're all
Toby Fox. So I'm going to attempt to provide a reading of each of these references for you as we go. Interpretation is, of course, up to the individual, but why did you come to unrepentant Spamtenna Shipper Island if you didn't want this? So the first thing that we encounter for Tenna is the feature presentation cutscene. Whoever Tenna is, he appears to fucking hate Peepus.
You can't get this from an egg!
But just as importantly, we've known him for about 30 seconds, and he's already making the most recognizable non-Spamten signifier of Spamten into a part of his introduction. Spamten's already a part, however symbolic, of how Tenna sees himself. And that compels me. I was on a walk at around 5 a.m. 2 days after the chapters dropped, listening to the OST when it hit that this was Hey Every, and I felt like I'd been stun-locked. When you start to put things together as a Spamtenna truther, it becomes most likely that Spamten appropriated Tenna's theme and whole steez, like, incomplete for his own branding. But as a Deltarune player who loves Deltarune music, seeing this cutscene for the first time, that's your second goddamn Spamten reference in the 40-second introduction of the new Dark World boss. It's auspicious, at the very least. You're meant to hear this as a person interacting with the track for the first time as Hey Every. Also, just as a little thought here, is Toby just shitposting by including the coming refrain twice in this track?
Coming straight from your house. Coming straight from your house. Please don't lie.
I don't have any interpretation of this. I just want to point it out because it's Okay. There's so much in this 1 30-second scene. First of all, the enshrinement of the mailroom, making it a secret from jump. We know Tenna built this game board over the Mantle video cartridge, Indie Dev King, so that's something. Like, he included a mailroom. He's excited about it. When there's no mail in this room, the surface, straightforward text reading is so easy. Haha, Tenna hasn't gotten any fan mail, fucking loser. Oh hey, is this a Spamten reference? Lamau. But then you look closer, and you look with your eyes, and you see that his sprite visibly deflates as he speeds through this realization. And his last words in this room aren't concerned about the lack of fan mail itself, it's all fine. We don't need a mail guy. Remember what I said earlier about Tenna's theme of artifice and how he exhibits egoistic behaviors of suppressing his own emotional needs? Like, thematically, I don't think the need he's suppressing here is for fan mail. It's a mail, but not— Okay, pause here so I can touch on the critical media enjoyer's method. This one simple trick that helps you find your own reading in the media you interact with, to pry it open and maybe crack a couple of ribs and get in there and say, hey, what's inside of this? Always pause and ask yourself, what does this tell me? Nothing made by humans, especially talented storytellers, is an accident. You only go deeper as you add qualifiers to the question too. What does this tell me about the story? What does this tell me about the character, about the setting? This is key, and I'm going to reference it as we go on. 10 years of fan mail says a lot. We know that time moves differently in a dark world, but this is such a specific reference to a period of time that I'm absolutely not sure what it's supposed to mean, if it means anything. In Dark World years, not Light World years, is that how long ago Tenna and Spamten met? Is that how long Tenna's been around? I highly doubt that. Like, if Toriel and Asgore read as being in their early 40s by our understanding of years, and they bought this television for, say, their first home before Azrael was born, then Tenna as a television set is probably about 20 years old in Light World years. And I promise you that bulky CRTs were still a thing in the early 2000s, I promise you. Now, they might have acquired an older TV secondhand, and the antennae might be a signifier of his age, of him being older. But honestly, even in the 1980s heyday of CRT televisions, that I'd consider the oldest he might be, most antennae were external and connected via coax. This TV set is definitely more than 10 years old at the very least. Like, personally, I think he reads his mid-40s, early 50s. And I'm choosing to believe, in Dark World years, Spamten and Tenna met 10 years ago, based on this line. Because it is telling us something. It might sound like I'm spending a lot of time on this one inconsequential, very small detail, but buddy, buckle up. My nose is the only nose that knows. Don't try to use the long nose of any other suspicious character. Okay, the look. Okay, first, we've got to address the gayness of this. If a couple of toxic, egocentric white gays in a relationship are going to do anything, it's look like each other. Anyway, sir, you are the one who keeps bringing him up. What is the name of this show's host? Two notable options here are Mr. Email and Mr. Lil Nose. Do you think that he ever mindlessly wrote Mr. Ant Email in the margins of his host cards, or what? Like, I absolutely headcanon that he just never really grasped what Spamten's full name was, and he's just kind of winging it. I'll come back to the bit about the nose. It's still just a bit, that'll change. We're gonna come back to the nose thing, not on this level though. So, Ram talking about the laptop. Time flies. Seems like just yesterday you and that girl had everyone here lined up. Queen on her side, king on your side, Tenna and back. Oh, it was chaos. Chaos! Only kids like you two would take a laptop home just to play make-believe. This is an atom bomb of a lore drop. So, the cyber world, Queen, Spamten, et al., is canonically from this library laptop. We can presume it's this laptop which Chris brought home and used to play with Noelle. Noelle, who has canonical but as yet unresolved connection to Spamten, might I add. This is like the trailhead to me. This is the game laying information out there that seems to exist solely as glue in putting other pieces together. The pieces I'm putting together here are Spamten is from the cyber world, and Spamten, at least frequently visited the dark world inside of Chris's television set. Sure was frequently inside of Chris's television set, if you know what I mean.
A bottom? A bottom? A twink bottom? A twink bottom? A twink bottom?
I don't fuck with essentialism in real life, but it's very funny when you're playing dolls with fictional characters to do it, and Tenna is the literal biggest service bottom I've ever seen. Moving on to the S-rank room. In the S-rank room, Hey Every sneaks in there once again in a track interestingly called Dump, and I do refer to it specifically as a Hey Every quote here because it's only playing those first 7 notes. It's not resolving. What is the arrangement of this song, of the mixing, trying to tell us? What is the metatextual fact that the track is called Dump trying to tell us? What are the, frankly, inordinate number of Spamten references before you even reach this room telling us? It said Spamten haunts TV world. He's not here, but he was. And something about him is just lingering in the background. What? Run that back. What's that? That's the holy. This is far afield from being about the yaoi, but that sure is some shit. And I'll patiently wait for Molly Stars to weigh in on it because what the hell did I say about Spamten being capital I important? In the bonus round, which I prefer to call the Crash Out battle and will refer to it again as such, there's a quiz that asks, what's another word for television? And one of the notably multi-word answers is better than email. And it's a correct answer. They're all correct answers. Normal reading, that's another Spamten reference. Maybe with a side order of, wow, he's kind of obsessed with Spamten. Subtextual reading is, damn it. Tenna compares himself to Spamten when defining himself. Favorably, yeah, but also palpably insecurely. Email, Spamten, is the thing which Tenna considers the pinnacle and embodiment of modern technology, threatening to supplant him in the Lightener's favor. If we use the grappling hook of device theory, we can get over the wall of why doesn't Tenna know about anything else with technology? Why is Spamten the only thing he knows if there are multiple computers in this house? In the words of Undertale, I assume and I interpret that one day Spamten just showed up and asserted himself. Casually and recklessly moving between dark worlds, God's specialist boy wanted to test his limits and make it big on television, and he wound up falling in love with the television. It's very Cronenberg, actually. Now's your chance to be an interpolation in the Crash Out battle. What the fuck was that? I plan to go over a lot more of the Crash Out battle dialogue in Layer 2, because this is the point in the game when I thought, oh, the mask is slipping, the artifice is compromised, and he hates it! But beyond that, this was just blatant. Like, this is, anyone can pick up on this. This is the Spamten theme, and even sped up, you know what it is. Help, my 20 to 40 shadow guys have unionized and it's all that spammy mailman's fault. My man is crashing out. He is going feral catboy mode, and most importantly, bro is projecting. And that's the immediate takeaway, along with, does anybody know what an email is? Referencing Spamten's self-described light world form, knowing it's new technology, having no idea what it actually is. God, I wish that was me. And that's where my first impressions of this scene started and ended on the first playthrough. But I find the middle line. He told me he was gonna teach me how to use technology. So fascinating. First of all, this is a very genuine, complete statement from Tenna. This adds so much to the complete picture of how these two actually interacted. This is, for many playing the game, the first line that really underlines that they weren't enemies. We have no reason not to believe this, as it's not couched in the usual blaming hyperbolic snipes that Tenna has made at Spamton thus far. Second, how are you gonna do that, Spamton? Tragically, how are you gonna do that? Was God's specialist boy planning to defy God and open trade routes between the Dark Worlds? Or was this a sincere offer he made in a moment of emotion, wanting to build that love and belonging foundation, only to find out later that he was a singular in being able to do what he does, to just flit between Dark Worlds and remain as himself? You're not gonna teach your CRT boyfriend what Google is. You can't bring Google to his world. This line is one of them that haunts me, frankly. It's very revealing. Spamton was going to teach him how to use technology, not sell him a masterclass about it or something. And where is he? Just kill me with a spear. Then he says, if I could only get my hands on, which has two different readings in my mind which diverge wildly. The first of which is that this is a Homer Simpson, why you little, threatening Spamton because they're messy and toxic. But the other is much more interesting, and I'll get to that on level 2. I'm gonna mention one more thing here that should really go in the next level, because it's a bit more obscure, and that's the crypto joke. There's some debate as to whether this is about Spamton, and I think yes, it is. But from a purely contextual point of view, there's no one else it could be referencing. And I believe Toby would have set it up differently if it were just a crypto joke. He has never been anyone but Spamton in Tenna's dialogue thus far. We've been conditioned to accept that he is Spamton. That's a lot, but also, who else was gonna tell him that? I also thought it was on the Spamtenna evidence board, but then I thought about it for 10 seconds. Tenna has no fucking idea what digital currency means. The only thing digital he knows about is video games, so he puts some coins in a video game and says it's digital currency. I hate them terribly. Nothing stays big forever. Not without a little help, that is. This is one of the more vague lines, actually. Big isn't stylized with all caps, so it could be a reference, but it's not a signifier. Specifically, one could interpret it, especially in concert with Tenna's dark, pensive sprite, to be a moment of nostalgia and less angry remembrance. Either way, this is one that I think is more emblematic of Tenna's arc rather than the ship. It's an oblique admission that he does need help sometimes. It's a crack in his veneer, in his artifice. I'm not like him. I'm better. This is often cited as a Spamton reference. The fact that this line directly follows Tori ought to know she doesn't need a new TV lends some weight to this being one of the possible times he or him is not referencing Spamton, it's referencing Asgore. I'm almost 100% on the side of this being an insecure Tenna fighting for his life and not wanting to end up kicked out of the family like Asgore. Contextually referring to Spamton here would make sense, but almost just as much, if not less than. However, the Mike Tellum, Mike definitely is not somebody that the other Dark Nerds interact with. We know that. Spamton, Asgore, I'm making the Spamtenna video, so I just wanted to put out there that I interpret this two different ways based on the dialogue that surrounds it. Toby Fox, you've created so many layers of emotion that I can't choose which emotion I want to feel. Aside, I am a Ghost fan. Also, by the way, I know, queer and autistic Ghost fan, Fork Founding Kitchen. And the frontman of Ghost is named Tobias Forge, and every time I get indignant about some new fuck shit that Toby Fox has done, affectionately, I'm like, Tobias? Which is not his name, by the way. So my brain is slowly just morphing these two creative powerhouse white men into this TF-shaped ball in my brain, and it's distracting sometimes. Alright, let's fucking go! Level 2, what I refer to as the enlightened route. This is going to be things that reference Chapter 2. It's going to contain more out-of-the-way stuff from the game. It's stuff that might take multiple playthroughs to see. And some of the things in this layer are simply references, so in that case I won't be spending as much time analyzing them. Like, these two are a narratively significant pair. They reference one another. The function is the reference itself in a lot of cases, especially the ones that make no goddamn sense. So foremost, the actual Spamtenna scene. I hate this. I love this. I hate this. I love it. I love what it says for Spamton's character, and I'm perplexed by what it says for Tenna's character. It's one of the very few times in this entire analysis that I have to step back, apply what is this trying to tell us strategy, mash that together with my reading of themes like two different colors of Play-Doh, and admit to myself that I truly believe this scene, of all the Spamtenna bullshit that I've gone over and have yet to go over, is artifice. I've seen people get mad at this scene and how it doesn't make any sense, and I agree. And I also think that's the point. I don't think that contextually this is given the gravitas to support any claims that Tenna did in fact recognize Spamton and is trying to keep running from any confrontation or self-reflection. You don't want to win this war because you don't want the peace. Shout out Vampire Weekend. Nor that Tenna thoroughly didn't recognize Spamton based on any physical changes he might have gone through in the ensuing years. There's a lot of misinformation on the internet about this one, and there's only an implication that Spamton ever was burned by acid in Queen's Mansion, and even then there's zero evidence to suggest that it shrunk him. It's funny, I love it for the memes, but I don't apply it to canon analysis, please. That's a bugaboo of mine. That's just me. I'm sorry, do you? I've also seen claims saying that Spamton was always shorter than the other Addisons and that this is textually supported through dialogue. I've not been able to find that dialogue and it's making me crazy. So if that is dialogue, please send me a screenshot of it and I'll eat my words. But I've not been able to find this. He's just a weird guy. I'm willing to believe it exists, but until I see it for myself, I choose to believe that Spamton's fucked up little autism creature body is an artistic device used to tell us something about this character and his corruption. I believe he's plainly meant to look like a ventriloquist dummy or puppet who tried to dress up like Swatch. Did the puppet's transformation occur slowly over time? Was this a punishment? We don't know. I'm at peace with that, not at peace with that. For now, I'm at peace with that because there's so much else here. If this scene tells us anything sincere at face value, other than being a subversion, a misdirection, an artifice, it's that Spamton went through so much and was corrupted so thoroughly that no, Tenna doesn't recognize him anymore. Could that be a classic literary device called metaphor, perhaps? I don't know, maybe. I'm middle-aged. I know what it's like to run into someone that you used to know and fuck with and be like, I don't know you anymore and I don't want to. What if this scene, metatextually, is insincere and meant to be a troll that provides the opposite of closure to the whole Spamtenna thing being built up in the background? Well, to me, with terminal shipper brain, it's actually kind of a genius move if it is. It's not Toby writing it off and treating this character development as a joke. Though it is a joke, it's a very funny joke. And it's telling us something else. This is not the whole of the text regarding this relationship. When I look at the omnibus of Spamtenna evidence and support and sort by importance, this scene's actually like kinda low. It's like middle tier at best. Toby gave us a gold mine under the surface in the subtext, knowing that the vast majority of us would stop there and think that's the whole of it. That's the resolution. Nah, buddy. You think there's a resolution? You think there's resolutions to important relationships that end suddenly and bitterly? You think? So Spamton has his own check dialogue in the TV Time boss fight. If you have Dealmaker, I think also the puppet scarf, I'm not sure, but if you have Dealmaker in your inventory, he definitely can say, the tragic businessman who died at the now of the story when you check Tenna. I think, like in my experience, it's unprecedented that an inventory item gets check dialogue in a boss battle. The significance of that is self-explanatory. I just don't know what to say about the dialogue itself. To me, it reads like Spamton is just saying a Spamton version of get his ass, and I shouldn't torture that reading any further because it's poetic just like that, and yes, he would fucking say that. The Susie Zilla Spamton head. At the risk of sending suspension of disbelief out of the room, I have to wonder who made this. What was the creative process of drafting and engineering this thing out of paper mache? It was Tenna, wasn't it? It was Tenna. He was like, let me put a photon accelerator inside this arts and crafts project, and also give it a fucked up pog face and a little nose. So, the noses are a dick metaphor, right? Like, I'm not saying it's explicit. Like, Tenna can read a room and an audience. He seems to know what's appropriate based on his audience, but there's definitely subtext there. Like, it may have been something subconscious on his part, but things got real Freudian real quick there, man. While on the Spamton head thing, now I know. I want to highlight here that Tenna knows what a big shot is. Battle-wise. You think they ever got into like really messy arguments that turned into full-fledged battles? Like humongous rip each other's dicks off energy there, just imagining that, right? Like, I'll come back to that. There's more devastating evidence to support this, actually. We'll get to it. Alright, that last part fucked me up so bad that my lighting changed. What is this telling us? Well, for whatever reason, Tenna considers Spamton his biggest hater. That's not entirely untrue if you're already multiple layers into the Spamtenna archaeological deposit, but it also clearly underlines a point that I think you only unlock when considering things beneath the surface, and that is, Tenna takes no responsibility whatsoever for the way things went down. It's to the point where he's positioning Spamton as an effigy of a final boss set to annihilate TV entirely. Now, this might be a response to what Spamton represents, which is technology, and the fear Tenna has about what that represents. Or it could be that this is just a representation, an artifice, of someone that's not there to defend themselves, which Tenna can use to deflect any confrontation or meditation on his own condition, his own culpability. So now I'm going to just go over the Spamton Chapter 2 references to Tenna or to anything that would play into this relationship. First of all, when Spamton mentions Tenna, it's spiteful. It's misdirected hostility, perhaps, and I believe there's a big reason as to why it might be there, but it has nothing to do with the actions of either. The only joyous allusion to TV World occurs after you spare Spamton Neo when he mentions Spamton's comeback special, before he fucking dies. That's telling. Like, it's telling that when Spamton regains hope, he once again refers to television and engaging with it positively. The only other use of the Hey Every motif, as well, occurs after Spamton Neo's spare, during A Real Boy, implying that this is Spamton's happier theme, which is, of course, connected to Tenna. Now, the mirroring. Much ink and virtual ink in the form of talking, has been spilled over the abundance of Spamton and Tenna referencing one another. I love this device because in most cases we're unsure of who is referencing whom in the sense of the characters themselves, and that's far less important than what the text is showing us with this. Tenna has dialogue in Chapter 3 that directly quotes Chapter 2 Spamton dialogue, and some players are not going to pick up on this at all. The dialogue skip through the boss fights, they're only here for certain characters, whatever. They might tilt their head and kind of go, is that a Spamton reference? And move on, and they might have the valid takeaway that Spamton and Tenna are bookend characters or narrative foils. And then some will recognize every single one of these references and go, oh, well, they were in love. It's the video game dialogue version of them wearing each other's clothes. The detail makes sense for the characters, yes, but it's also shorthand put there for you, the freak. References include the smooth taste of Neo, and then Tenna referencing Neo in his boss fight. Hey Toby, what the specific fuck with that one? Which leads me to believe that Neo is the key here. Neo is the fucking tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Remember earlier when I talked about the Tenna line, if I could only get my hands on, and I said that I specifically have 2 readings of that line? This is the more compelling one. That other one is boring. I don't think that. I don't think that at this rising action moment of the game we need another dialogue line to drive home that Tenna is angry at Spamton. The auspicious use of ellipses from Toby has been used before as an obfuscation tactic in dialogue, and since these lines canonize that Tenna knows what Neo is, since directly before if I could only get my hands on, Tenna says that Spamton was going to show him how to plug in and make it big. Did Spamton think the Neo body was the way to get Tenna to the cyber world before he decided to use it to take revenge on God instead? I don't know if I believe it, but compels me. In the sword route, when you're in the shelter before you get to Aram, Tenna delivers a literal passive-aggressive love monologue. I love this scene. This is our first glimpse into an actual series of events from Tenna's point of view, and we only hear them because 1, we chose to follow the dark path, gay shipping the dark path, and 2, Tenna doesn't know we're there. He doesn't know we're watching. It has to be acknowledged that these memories are inherently biased, but the journey he takes in recounting them is psychologically fascinating. And this is the part where I'm like, okay, so you did mean partner in that way. Like if you were business partners, that egomaniacal diva would have been more than a mailman already.
Gaster.
Okay, pause. This dialogue is unusual, isn't it? It's quite emotional, isn't it? It's unsure. This isn't Robotnik wresting the Chaos Emeralds from Sonic via an elaborate fake dating scheme. This is telling us something about Tenna. Did he even really want this? Becoming big. Becoming a big shot. Was that actually his motivator in this? Is he trying to separate his emotions from the events in order to frame himself as independent and above it all? Like, can you imagine the ominous phone ringing in the background and the slow realization dawning on Spamton's face that he is not in control here? Again, my interpretation of this is that Spamton wanted to give Tenna what he had, not only his divinely bestowed artifice, but his ability to transcend his dark world, to move beyond and experience a breadth of existence. This is my personal interpretation. It could be torpedoed at any moment, but given the information we have, it's reasonable to think Spamton had grown to want to do this, to defy his benefactor, to defy God. He wanted to get Tenna that Neo body, I think. It's especially evident that he pissed someone off. Interesting for two reasons, in my opinion. One, in order to turn pale, you need to have blood. I'm just leaving that there. Someone else can clean it up for me later. It just might be a literary device, I don't know. Two, what was said? What was that phone call? I have only theories. Not even interpretations, really. Just, I don't know. Prevailing amongst my theories is that Spamton was told he'd get cut off from his success, his power, his enlightenment, if he tried to bring anyone else in. Or maybe specifically if he associated with Tenna any longer. This was a blessing for you, not for anyone else. So we know that he physically removed himself. He made a choice in that moment rather than face any consequences, whatever they may have been. And what kills me here is that Tenna picks up the phone. He doesn't run after Spamton, but I also get that story-wise we're being led to the clincher, which also lets us know Tenna's not chosen. Spamton has a line to God, outside of the device, outside of the game, but he couldn't even explain what it was, likely, without endangering his position. They were both selfish, I think. And if that was indeed their final interaction, which this monologue does lead me to believe that it was, I'm not surprised they resented one another. The far more melodramatic theory is that in the phone call, God, Gaster, poisoned Spamton against Tenna. That quickly, that decisively, he got to sever ties in a way that was clean and which would ensure bitterness until the end. Mutual blame placing. They'll never forgive one another. Fucking diabolical. That little freak ripped me off. And then... This is Rolling in the Deep by Adele. I can't believe how goddamned in love they were. For Tenna to wish he'd never met him at all. In the context of the Sword Root, these are also Tenna's last personal words before he sees Chris and essentially pleads for his life. I don't know what else I can add to it. The pathos, the drama.
You're gay!
The Z-Rank room. First of all, let's talk about the strange implications of this room. After managing to hit rank Z, you collect your gift from Ram, and he tells you that it's empty because Tenna doesn't like that behavior, since it reminds him of a certain... you know. I don't, Ram, but I can infer. This one is fucking bizarre, honestly. I'm so interested in the events that transpired between these two. One of my least favorite things is wild conjecture without canon basis, passed off as evidence-backed theory, so I find myself at a loss here in regards to things because I can't put together the timeline on this one. Now, inside the Z-Rank room, there's the obvious things. The telephone, unplugged, on either the same or what appears to be the same stool as it sat on in Spamton's shop in Chapter 2. The background music is dump, slowed even more. There's the manhole cover that leads to the S-Rank room, and honestly, it drives me crazy that we can't actually see the manhole in S-Rank room, because what I'm asking is the Z-Rank room physically above the S-Rank room, and you drop down into it? Does the manhole lead to the ceiling of that room? Is there a pipe? A vent? Are there like Mario pipes? Is there an underground? Is there like a dungeon sewer level in the TV station? I'm overthinking it. The poster's on the wall, highly implied to portray Spamton and Tenna in a collaboration that either once was or once was going to occur, notably writhe with the same indistinct darkness that we saw in Ralsei's early monologue about the nature of how darkness begets a dark world. So, why is it happening to these posters in the dark world? This tells us something, but I don't know what it is yet. Like, this fucks me up a little, that I can't put the timeline together. The existence of T-Rank room, which adds an interesting possibility to what S-Rank room is, since A, B, C are obviously the normal rooms. S is for the superior rank. And then T rank obviously stands for Tenna. Does S rank stand for Spamton? I think S rank isn't supposed to stand for Spamton, but I think that after all the connections that are established, T equals Tenna, S equals Spamton, S rank being abandoned, the manhole cover connecting the S and the Z rooms, with Z being an obvious Spamton reference, and most damning in my opinion, the dump theme that's shared between S and Z rooms. It's all very Mrs. Havisham. Tenna is in a lot of ways very Mrs. Havisham about how he dealt with Spamton's disappearance from the TV world, isn't he? I've still got wine. I've been pacing myself with the wine. I haven't been pacing myself. I kind of like stopped drinking this for a while after the introduction because
Where's all the peepus? Peepus.
I've said this a lot on this level, but I don't even know how to interpret this one because there are possibly intentional contradictions here about what peepus are. They're very obviously referenced as eggs, but in the Spamton Sweepstakes Q&A, Spamton himself answers one person that peepus are his favorite food, which references this Tumblr post, and it's a Mexican restaurant. I do believe in my heart of hearts that this is a compound reference with the Griffin McElroy vines, especially since we do get a peepus room later on.
Peepus room.
And then Spamton answers another person in the Sweepstakes Q&A that peepus are the boys, and only a freak would eat them. I mean, they are both freaks, granted, but I still feel like peepus is something I'm like, all right, not my circus, not my monkeys, not my circus, not my peepus. And therefore, I don't have an analysis of this. I think the fact that Tenna does hold on to peepus and that they have propagated in the TV world is more or less an indicator that Spamton was here and Spamton thrived here. So now we enter level 3. The Spamtenna Truther route includes references and scenes that are hard to find. These are also the things that reference the metatextual narrative of Deltarune. On June 16th, Toby made a curious little post on Blue Sky, and in this post, he described Spamton and Tenna as two intentionally similar characters who mutually enhance each other. He compared them to Spy vs. Spy, which is crazy because the homoeroticism inherent in Spy vs. Spy is palpable. I not only find it interesting that this calls out the Spy vs. Spy aspect of Spamton and Tenna, but also that Toby's main thread of post-release tweets have to do with Tenna. I find that charming. I get the impression that Tenna holds a special place for Toby, but I don't know for sure. I'm projecting, I'm inferring things. I just like this. It doesn't exactly evoke shipping potential, but it definitely evokes that they're connected. In the Spamton Neo Weirdroot fight, when you're about to seal the fountain, he's indignant that you would screw him over at the good part, and asks, "What are you, a game show host?" This line grants further credence to the interpretation that Spamton was indeed lied to about Tenna's intentions on that one phone call. There's an entire column of Spamton sprites appearing in the flashing screens during Tenna's breakdown in the TV time boss fight. Ain't no other goddamn reason for those to be there. There's a lot to be said for what appears in this collage in general, but as far as people who appear in this collage, there's few of them, and Spamton's one of them. Spamton G. Spamton Twink Death. The Spamton air freshener is our only canon glimpse at what this little fucker looked like during his big shot era, and yeah, I can believe that that's a guy who could bag the baddest bitch in Deltarune, other than Queen. Alright, here we go. Tenna has a coping mechanism of mirroring divorce out of empathy for Chris because he reflects Chris's motivation in creating the fountain, I believe. Now, the crash out dialogue might be a window into the past, rather than or in addition to being a divorce mirror. On a first playthrough, it is going to seem like all this is a Dreamer family divorce Chris trauma metaphor, and that is an interpretation I agree with. I believe it's most strongly supported by the family's fighting again line, as well as the pipe segment being a reflection of Chris regretting flushing bath bombs down the toilet, which is canon. I do like the interpretation that Tenna is echoing things he's heard in the Dreamer household here, but there's more than one reading here, and I think it's intentional. Wires are crossing. This is his crash out, after all. Looking at some of these lines as combination things Tenna heard from an arguing couple and things Tenna said as half of an arguing couple is a bit emotionally devastating. Because holy shit, they were messy if that's the case. Like, everyone on that set was uncomfortable. That was a hostile work environment. You can really see this best if you take the kind of unusual route of actually saying "I love TV" during every round in the crash out fight. Tenna will begin a series of dialogue that kinda hurts. I love TV, that's all you gotta say. All you have to do is speak your mind. Haha, that's right. But did you really mean it? It's not good enough. This game's never gonna end until you mean it. I love TV. Say it. Look me in the nose and say it. Neither Toriel nor Asgore ever said that. And another thing, was this also a reference to a couple's argument because that's Spamtenna's battle theme? Like, imagine getting into a fight with your boyfriend and he has to start an entire battle interface about it. This also implies that Spamton started at least one fight, but come on, man. Come look at him. Tell me he wouldn't PvP you about how you spread butter on your toast in the morning. God. Tenna hates himself. Like, you're made for each other. Who does Chris ship Tenna with, do you think? Just wondering. Changing things up a little bit here, because we're about to enter level 4, and that means it's time for the weird route. Look, Deltarune has a massive player base. It's passionate. It's maybe not as large and maybe not as passionate as the Undertale player base, but it's true. Yet I can't in good conscience say that the majority of Deltarune player will know what I'm saying when I reference the more obscure elements of being a Deltarune fan. If you know about the Spamton sweepstakes secret pages so well that you know that Raise Up Your Bat was a reference that was name-dropped on Noelle's blog page 2 years before Chapter 3 came out, if you saw the Mystery Man Valentine or the Rules Card Thruple Valentine from 2024, if you participated in thankyou.html before the site went dark and have the response email to prove it, that's mine. I didn't put in a number, so I didn't get anything except no subject and no text, but that's it. That's the email. You're a freak. I say affectionately, but you're a freak. These are the kind of connections and references that will make you sound like a crazy person, but for my money, they're also some of the strongest. So here we go for the freaks. These are all retroactive references is the beauty part. All of these existed before Chapter 3, which is why I say with my whole chest, this was a setup. And it was set up so meticulously and beautifully that even if it's not meant to be that serious, I can't deny that Toby Fox ships these two somehow. First of all, another wonderful entry from the Spamton Sweepstakes Q&A, which in the context of being asked about MLMs, because Undertale fans can't help themselves, Spamton speaks about business-loving businessmen, and then being kissed on the mouth in the process.
Gay person, gay individual, homosexual.
And then, from the Spamton Sweepstakes description of the t-shirt, so between the noses thing, the coming refrain in feature presentation, and immediately indoctrinating Metaton with the nasty music videos, and more, there's a not unspoken sexual nature to Tenna. I mean, he's TV, he knows what goes on. Tenna fucks, is what I'm saying. And I'm definitely not the first person to point out the chewed up bubblegum reference. Not because of the reference itself, but because I'm kind of stunned that Spamton would be a purity judge here, but I'm here to analyze the text. Even the meta text like this. It's not the bubblegum wrappers bit that brings Tenna to mind, it's the next line. Granted, Spamton calls Tenna trash heap, not scrap heap, but you know what? Close enough. Since the link does lead to ramp.html and the green room, he's talking about his slutty ex. Spamton had 3 different Valentines during the 2024 newsletter Valentine Hunt, and one of them was this, addressed to my beloved, and then expletive, 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 the clincher being that they're drowning me in insulating foam. I think this one is more of a gag, honestly, but since it's a blatant retroactive reference to the Spamtenna scene, here it is. Yet another entry from the Spamton Sweepstakes Q&A references That Cathode's crew. When someone asks about Mike, we're getting to Mike, by the way. Mike has his own section. We're getting to Mike. Okay, I didn't even write anything scripted for this one because this is my pet reference in regards to Spamtenna, and that is the Tropic of Love. The Tropic of Love is this island that you can find if you explore around on board 2. It is full of rainbow-colored dancing trees that play a song that is not Keijin sped up. After you leave that island, Tenna is very proud of it. It's cute. He just seems to have put some thought into that. Again, he's banging out shareware mods. I love this guy. But then, if you go back to that island later, you can find Tenna hiding out on that island under one of the trees in a secret room. He doesn't say anything that's relevant to the Spamton thing, but I do think it's telling that this is a place that he can use as a hideout. And then here's the real thing about the Tropic of Love. That song, the not Keijin, the title of that song is South of the Border! Exclamation point, exclamation point. That's a reference, again from the Spamton Sweepstakes product description page. It's a reference that you find on the Mr. and Mrs. and Spamton thruple cutting board, where it says here, as an added we will provide a red correctional marker. So if your relationship goes south of the border, just cross out the Mr. or Mrs. as needed. So where have we seen a red correctional marker being used? If we go to the damnyoutenna.html page, we see Tenna crossed out, and we see an impassioned little speech from Spamton about what he intends to do about this. Then there's another Mike reference at the end. Again, we're getting to Mike. How do we find a damnyoutenna.html? It's another secret link from the Spamton Sweepstakes. It's on one of the prize pages. It's on the engraved wedding ring page. Do you see what I mean? Do you see what I mean when I say that this takes a certain level of unhinged? Like, who's gonna connect these dots? I don't have a big stake in a lot of ARGs, but I did cut my teeth on ARGs in the mid to late 2000s, back when real men wrote ARGs. Sorry, that's so stupid. I cut my teeth on some pretty heinous ARGs, and this reminds me of that bullshit, where you'd be like, I promise I'm not crazy, here's how all the pieces fit together, and then nobody on the unfiction boards will think you're crazy, they're just like, yeah. So that right there is probably the impetus of this entire thing for me. This video, that is. I saw that and I'm like, the people should know. Cool. Great story. But it goes on. And this is late breaking to the point that it is coming straight from the editing bay as I'm finishing up this video.
This is a post by Tumblr user Corey Zadori, to whom I owe an extreme debt because I never expected someone to get this unhinged about it, and I very much appreciate it. In the trash piles in Undertale, you can see a CRT television and a mailbox right next to each other, with a game console prominently above them. The television also seems to have a crack down the center, as if it has been cleaved. You know what? No, I take it back. I am insane.
There's this part in Chapter 3 where when you rebuff Tenna's offer to continue the game, however, remember how I said that there were 3 Spamten Valentines? Number 2 of those Valentines is this one, in which he says, I thought we had something. We had a set. We had a kids. And you want to tear them down? Excuse me? Excuse me? There's also a tenuous link when he mentions, why did you change your credit card number? Tenna does say, where's my debit card? But that is called back by Rule's card later on, so I don't think that that's a Spamten reference, but it's tenuous, so it's in here. It's there. We're just looking at the Valentine anyway, so I thought I'd go over it, but the pièce de résistance. Look at this Valentine. Look at the salutation on this Valentine. That's a very specific reference to an Every Teenager's post from Tumblr, and we know Toby Fox was on Tumblr a lot. That reference is to the puppet master who cursed my dick. It's canon.
Oh, they fucking.
And there. That's the whole of it at present. Oh wait, there is one thing I forgot. So, about Mike. The initial Mike references from Chapter 2 by Spamten that sent the entire fandom off on a snipe hunt for Mike seem melancholy and regretful. He also turns into a fucking goner in that moment, but we won't talk about that right now. That's not my video to make. He speaks directly to Mike in the Spamten Neophyte as well, much like Tenna does during his entire chapter. Mike is referenced on the damnyoutenna.html page as the one person that Spamten will not take vengeance upon. Mike is going to be spared Spamten's wrath. That says something right there. Spamten seems protective and defensive of Mike somehow. E.g. when Spamten says, you know nothing about Mike, nothing, and that's the way it's going to stay, you leave him out of this. Tenna, on the other hand, almost seems to take Mike for granted. He regards him with this amicable yet slightly obligatory fondness. And if we're to believe the Pippins in the Mike fight dialogue in Chapter 4, or rather after the Mike fight in Chapter 4, Tenna treats Mike as kind of a therapist, a catch-all, a friend. And then following the Mike fight, that same character can be heard to say, Tenna always said Mike acted different after the other guy left. What other guy? What different? There's an extreme left turn reading of this that supposes no one else in TV world, except for Ram, ever actually saw Spamten? I'm hesitant to subscribe to that personally, but I'm not hesitant to believe that no one else ever saw Mike. There's so many other interpretations out there already, but in light of Chapter 3, it feels like Mike is the folie à deux of Spamten and Tenna. That he represents their own darker concept of something they created, something that's theirs, to each of them inextricable from the other person, and yet something to protect and nurture. An obligation, but also a joy. Something they made together. Tenna saw divorce, supposedly so did Spamten, and at the end of the day he was like, well, I get to keep Mike, so I win, there's that. While Spamten wallows in knowing that he might not ever see Mike again. In Chapter 3, when Mike leaves, He's the last to leave. That's preceded by a spotlight falling directly on Tenna as if to underscore his big moment of grief. It's preceded by Tenna losing everything else, though. And there is no Mike, not for them. This isn't Asriel. There's no one-to-one metaphor here. There are no children in this divorce. They are clinging to a vestige of something that came out of their relationship as being worth having happened, worth cherishing, while they otherwise buy into their own seemingly baseless narratives of hatred for one another on the surface level. Mike is the biggest artifice of all, because in speaking fondly about Mike, they seem to be speaking about one another in a nostalgic way that they can't bring their real personas to do. I've gone through several moments while writing this when I think, ooh, that would be a good film to reference, or, this reminds me a lot about one element in this one book. For instance, in that Mike section, I really wanted to touch on the 2011 Japanese film Kotoko, not for the faint of heart, by the way, or like The Others, in order to just touch on the concept of hallucinating entire people in a media narrative. Even The Substance, when discussing Neo, to go over themes of obsolescence and obscurity and how that can make monsters out of us, really. I even had this whole weird aside about the original The Little Mermaid that I got really into for a little while, because if you don't know, the original Little Mermaid, one of her motivations is not just love. Like, love is a motivation there, but her other main motivation is that humans have immortal souls while mermaids do not, and so part of her goal there was to gain an immortal soul, which sounds familiar, but none of that worked, because deltarune is so specifically not in conversation with other texts, and that's very interesting to me. The light world of monsters and humans and the dark worlds and how they operate, there's no link to truly be made to our own experiences and our own culture, not on a large scale of intertextuality, but there is empathy and philosophy. We as a human audience can apply that to the individual character arcs and to how we understand the plot and how it's moving forward. It's beautiful. Honestly, one of the things I really loved about Spamtenna is that these are big adults. These are both no younger than grown-ass adults. And Tenna is definitely middle-age coded. I'm well north of the average Undertale Deltarune fan's age, I know that. And I realize that sometimes, I do have perspective that's important here. Like, I'm not a teenager. I'm not a human living in a monster's world, but I'm still a transmasculine, non-binary person. And to have a story protagonist use exclusively they-them pronouns, while also not being completely defanged and being allowed to be complex and have an individual agenda apart from the player, it's very cool. My early 20s self relates so hard to Noelle, and my professional, no kids having, no bitches having, homosexual mid-40s self looks at Tenna and goes, yeah, just as much. But while I can project onto characters in the Dark World, put their motivations and dialogue and actions into a jar and rattle it around and listen and pick out what sounds familiar, I still don't know how all this works for them. And in the case of Spamtenna, if things like love and passion and sex even work at all. And that doesn't matter. This isn't about whether Spamtenna is real. It is real. It's about how many different types of Easter egg and secret hunts are out there and how Toby Fox appreciates his player base, his audience, and its tendency to go on those hunts. And people say that the Mike fight was kind of poking fun at the player base, and yeah, I think it is, but it's also such a love letter to the fandom. What other creator does that as well? If this was a Scott Cawthon game, he would have kicked us in the shins and called us pieces of shit, let's be honest. There's the old cliche that it's not the destination, it's the journey, and let me tell you, Deltarune is going to be written in the book of my own personal days as one of my favorite video games of all time. If for nothing else than the experience beyond the game that it's given me. I don't ship things to be right. And I don't engage critically and analytically with the text to be right. I'm just creating my own little dark worlds over here, reveling in the depth and looking at something a little sideways. That can provide joy. Thanks for watching. This took a lot of energy to make.
I'll probably never make a video again.